Hi guys, this is David Negrin, host of the Script Podcast and executive director of the NYC Screenwriters Collective. I'm excited to announce that we've created a Patreon campaign for the Script. Patreon is like a Kickstarter, but it allows you to give ongoing pledges every month and receive ongoing rewards. Of course, the Script Podcast will continue to be free, but we're just asking for a little help. So please, check out all our rewards, join our inner circle. Become a patron of the Script Podcast at patreon.com/thescript.
So much has happened since I last saw you. I lost my hammer, like yesterday, so that's still pretty fresh. And then I went on a journey of self-discovery, where I met you. Where are we? You have no idea. Hela, the goddess of death, has invaded Asgard.
Oh, I've missed this.
And you and I had a fight recently.
Did I win?
No, I won, easily.
Doesn't sound right.
Well, it's true.
Asgard is dead. And it'll be reborn in my image. I thought you'd be glad to see me.
I need to stop her here and now to prevent Ragnarok, the end of everything. So I'm putting together a team. Like the old days. Surprise! This will be such fun. Hello. Hi.
He's a fighter.
Here we go! I'm not a queen or a monster. I'm the goddess of death. What were you the god of again?
We're the same, you and I. Just a couple of hot-headed fools.
Yeah, same. Hulk like fire, Thor like water.
Well, kind of both like fire.
But Hulk like raging fire, Thor like smoldering fire.
This is the Script. Welcome. Podcast for screenwriters by screenwriters. Deepest story analysis anywhere on the internet. Script, we believe story moves pages, story moves product, story moves people. I'm your host, David Negrin. Joining me tonight, Alec Pollock.
Hello, David. Hello, everyone.
We're doing Thor Ragnarok. Thor number 3. We did podcast Thor Dark World on this pod.
I don't know that I was here for that.
You may not have been. I didn't review it
What
entirely. It was 2-3 years ago. Two-ish. Different director. Different writers. The artist tonight, the director is Taika Waititi, who is from New Zealand, and we know him from What We Do in the Shadows,
Yes.
which is an incredible mockumentary about vampires, which is hysterical. It's comedy. He directed a film called Hunt for the Wilder People. He is uncredited and wrote the original draft of Moana.
Not much survive, but
Is that true?
yeah.
Okay, good
but
to know.
he was in there. He was. His brain was part of it.
Also responsible for directing Green Lantern 2011.
He directed it. No, he was in it.
Or is it in it?
He was in it. He was the sidekick.
He was the sidekick? I feel like he was... I don't know. We're going to have to check that one out.
All right.
But he had an Oscar-nominated short called Two Cars, One Night that got him on the scene from New Zealand. Screenwriters were Eric Pearson, Marvel one-shot Agent Carter coming up, Craig Kyle from the Hulk vs. Animated series, and Christopher Yost, who is well known for writing Star Wars Rebels. Can characters by Stan Lee, Larry Lieber, and Jack Kirby, of course.
And a lot of this movie was also improv all along the way.
Is that right? A lot of improvisational.
Yeah. So I think those writers, I think, had worked on the story structure along with Kevin Feige and the Marvel folks. But all along the way, from what I understand, there was a lot of improvisation of the dialogue and playing around with it and just having a lot of fun on set, it seemed like.
This film takes the action comedy to the comedic level that it wants to be at. Putting this director, Waititi, if that's how you say his name, at the helm of this is like putting a Judd Apatow or a Nick Kroll, a true comedic director at the helm of a huge action tentpole. A great choice.
Yeah.
A great choice.
But now you and I have talked about the idea that Big Trouble in Little China is a nice corollary here from
you
way back
you
when.
brought that up. I'm a big fan.
As am I, and I think Taika Waititi also is.
Okay.
It seems like there's some connection there. But that was John Carpenter.
John Carpenter, yeah. But there's such great comedy in Big Trouble in Little China, and there's also these amazing action set pieces.
Yeah.
And that it's a cult classic because it balances those things as well as a bunch of mythology. You're right. I mean, it's such a great precursor to what the tentpole Marvel superhero action comedy should be. It's got the strong lead, it's got the comedy, it's got the action set pieces, and it's got mythology and great story and an ensemble also.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kim Cattrall,
Yeah.
Lots of great people in that. The actor who played Wang. So, yeah, I mean, that was my big up actually for we're gonna do the script instant review segment. We're going to do genre analysis segment. We're going to do structure analysis. We're going to do screenwriting craft issues, and then how it should have ended segment. For the instant review, we were going to do one up, one down. My one up was going to be the choice of this director.
Okay.
That putting it in the hands of a true comedic director who knows that you don't come to set to read the lines, but to start with a structure of the script and to improvise, with the comedic talents of your actors, including the director, because he played Korg in this, the rock guy. Yeah. And he was a great
he was fantastic.
aside.
It's so interesting also because, I mean, we know screenwriters so often get so lost and mired in the dialogue and trying to get every little thing just perfect at the expense of spending time on story and story structure and making sure the whole thing comes together well. Yeah. When a lot of times when it's actually out there being created, it's that structure that's really going to hold the whole thing together.
Yeah, I mean this is why great screenwriting takes so many different levels of understanding of not just because this film holds up as story structure, right? It also holds up in the greater mythology of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the Marvel Galactic Universe. I want to talk about that, but then at the scene level, scene to scene, every scene the dialogue and the conflict in each scene keeps it up, keeps it afloat. You're never bored in this movie. I have some questions about some of the directions they chose, but this movie is so tight in it because it's afloat because of all this great dialogue.
So that's a big up that you got there.
Yeah, that's a big up.
My up actually, my biggest up, if I had to choose one, I saw this with my daughter, with my 6-year-old. The two of us went to a 9 a.m. show at Alamo Drafthouse, all ages, and we had a great time. And actually experiencing it through her eyes, my big up is having her, throughout the show, lean over to me and say, "Daddy, that's so cool." That was the best part for me.
Which means it's doing something right. It has to be doing something right.
It's inspiring awe.
And if I'm right, your daughter never saw the previous Thor films.
No, she didn't know
She wasn't
about
worried about continuity.
No, she was just experiencing it and experiencing the excitement of it and the moments of awe, the moments of wonder, the moments of, I think, again, we know Kirby was a big influence in terms of the production design, and that kind of like absurdist abstraction of reality that the original Marvel comics were really going for. it's here. Like, they've been able to bring it to screen, and I thought that really, really brought it to life in such a different way. But still, it felt like it was
Did your
part of the
daughter
MCU.
gravitate to the female characters? Do you think they did a decent job with Valkyrie, with Hela, of creating strong female main characters?
She
for the film?
definitely loved both of those characters.
Yeah.
She thought Hela was awesome. I mean, she's a big fan of Maleficent, so I think the
oh,
whole
yeah.
horned character, I think,
Sure.
was in there. Valkyrie, she thought was very, very cool, especially her jumping from spaceship to spaceship and fighting and really like being brave out there.
I saw some amazing stuff from Valkyrie. That I felt like I was watching the Wonder Woman film.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
felt like it was like her movie for a little
She
while.
was on
in
it.
the action set pieces.
She was on it. Indy also enjoyed Thor and Hulk a lot. She
Mm-hmm.
thought they were a lot of fun, as did I. I thought everybody really did a good job. I like the ensemble nature of the whole thing.
Yeah,
thought that
I
it all
mean,
came together.
this was an ensemble, as all Marvel sort of films have to be. They try to pack everybody in. We have at the script we have the superhero tentpole action comedy checklist, because the action comedies for tentpole films are kind of like genres of their own, and there's 5 things that we're looking for when we're trying to see a tentpole action comedy succeed. First is the ratio of action set pieces to story, right? Do we spend 45 minutes in just gratuitous action explosions and with no narrative at all, or do they balance the rate of action set pieces with the story? Character development in an ensemble. If you're going to stick all these characters into the film, we got to make sure they all count, they all matter to the story. Are the action set pieces and the comedic set pieces, are they original? Are they different? Right? Because this is a popcorn movie. It should be funny, and it should be thrilling in ways we haven't seen before. The main plot, number 4, is the overall originality of the superhero plot. Right? Is it a supervillain army comes to take over the world? Right?
Yes.
Well, it happens to be in this one. Or is it this origin story we've seen over and over again? I don't know. So number 5 is you got to reinvent the names of the superheroes, the suits, the catchphrases. We got to do something different. And I think tonight we want to talk about this film in terms of those big ones.
Let's get into it.
I would say my one down is going to go to number 2 on that list is the character development in an ensemble.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think this fell down. I think this did very well as a two-hander between the Hulk and Thor.
Uh-huh.
And I think it fell down in character development for Loki, for Valkyrie, and for Hela, let alone some of the other straggling characters. Okay?
I mean, look, you can't go too far with everybody necessarily.
The comment I always say is, Whedon can do it, why can't you?
But you had arcs for Valkyrie. You had arcs for Loki.
We get one flashback of Valkyrie, and the fact that the reason that she's a drunk and she's like no longer an Asgardian through a flashback. That's like the laziest possible way to do it. And it also is like this great sort of Valkyrie flying like Pegasus sequence. Where's that part of the movie?
Yeah, I hear so many people.
Can I get
were
that?
talking-
Can I get that in the
wanna see that
in the
movie.
prologue? Yeah, where's that movie?
But look, I mean, it's not unusual if you think about Valkyrie as a protagonist. I mean, I know she wasn't necessarily in the structure of this movie, but in the movie of her life, as the protagonist, starting off with that hero who has renounced the heroic life and is now kind of the waste and refuses the call to adventure. Like, she's got all the beats in her own story.
And I'll agree, they're there. It's not entirely like completely ham-fisted, but they're also, it's not original. It hasn't been, her backstory and her arc are not very well illustrated, colored in. The beats are there, but not in the way that the Hulks are, right? The Hulk's arc in this is so interesting because we find out basically 3/4, or I think it's the midpoint of the movie. We find out that the David Banner has been stuck as the Hulk excuse me, Bruce Banner. That was the TV version.
Hulk, yeah.
Bruce Banner has been stuck in the Hulk for 2 years.
Yeah.
And once Bruce Banner gets back, he's afraid to become the Hulk again so that he doesn't get lost. The superpower becomes a force of antagonism. Amazing. That is great. And the Hulk is actually sort of a different character than Bruce Banner.
Yeah.
And finding, for the first time, we get to meet the Hulk and his personality.
Yeah.
And him going tete-a-tete with the Thor and, who's the strongest Avenger.
So fun. So wait, where's the balance? Like, how do you strike that balance then when you're working with an ensemble cast of characters? Because you don't want to go too far with everybody's story, because then you're diverting from your core characters, right?
You don't have as many characters, okay? The Heimdall plot in this is ridiculously underserved, okay? We cut to Idris Elba for like 2 scenes in the film. He's starting the revolution. The revolution ends up being like a D plot to this movie. It's totally not necessary. And so I don't know I have no idea how Heimdall got kicked out of the leadership on Asgard. We don't see him form the revolution. We don't see him steal the sword, right? Isn't it him who steals the sword for the transport?
Bifrost,
yeah. We don't see any of that happen. We certainly don't care about his emotions and his character arc in this.
Right.
Like I said, I want to find out more about Hela as well. We've got our main antagonist here is just, her backstory is she's the outcast, older sister of Odin, and Odin dies, so she decides to show up. Where's the darkness? Where's the complexity of a Maleficent backstory?
As in the Angelina Jolie Maleficent.
Yeah.
No, I hear you. I hear you. She was definitely kind of like your one-dimensional villain, but again, as far as Marvel villains go, I thought she was pretty interesting in terms of not necessarily being just a redundant version of the hero and a lot of the origin stories that Marvel seems to keep recycling again and again.
I mean, but she does fall into that cliche antagonist for a superhero film, which is she shows up, she takes over the planet, she has an army of henchmen that we can throw bodies at the heroes. So unfortunately, they failed on plot on number 4 from our genre discussion.
But are they playing on that being a convention and something that happens again and again? Because Surtur, starts off the movie as this big theoretical force of antagonism, and then he's utilized in the end as part of.
Surtur was great. One of my great notes for Act 1 for the setup was it's so awesome to start a movie with Thor fighting a demigod demon. Who is a worthy adversary. It's so hard to create worthy adversaries for, gods, right? So the Surtur character opens up and he beats him, but, he beats him handily. And then it's sort of a surprise when it comes out in the 3rd act that they use him. But I don't know. I mean, I guess the concept was, tell me why they allowed Asgard to be destroyed? That was part of the plan?
That was your, we'll get to structure later, but that was the dig down deep moment when he had that realization that the only way to save the people was to let go of what they're trying to save. I
mean, he beat up Surtur with like no problem. Like it took, he dug down. I mean, he had the hammer, of course, but it was, he didn't have he wasn't fully in his arc of being the god of thunder yet, and apparently Surtur can beat Hela and Thor can't.
Once he's gone through that eternal flame, that was the key. It was
how
how
was the eternal flame
makes him into mountainside monster, and it takes it to a different level.
The only thing that I got out of that I appreciated out of that ending, I can't believe we just jumped to the ending, but it goes to the character arc of Hela, is that not being there, is that Ragnarok itself was an inevitability. Ragnarok was the end of days, the prophecy. It could not be stopped. And that's an interesting concept. And that I don't think we've seen before. The idea that, Thor and Asgard is a place that has an end of days, and it's almost like a Kryptonian moment, right? It's the end of the planet, and now they get on a ship and they head to Earth.
Yeah, I know we're jumping around a little bit.
Yeah.
Thematically, like we saw a lot of kind of like burning things down and then having them come back up and having them be rebuilt. And again, jumping around in our checklist, our superhero checklist. Thor gets burnt down and taken apart and deconstructed.
Absolutely, his hair and his right eyeball.
Yeah, his hair, his eyeball, his hammer, which is
The
a
hammer,
part of his
you're
identity.
absolutely right.
So he is completely deconstructed and rebuilt as something completely new. And again, his arc is from someone who rejects the throne at the beginning. It's all about rejecting the throne and being the adventurer.
And which is so earned. It's been 3 movies of rejecting the throne.
Yeah.
And then he finally sits in
Sits
it.
on the throne at the end. So I mean, like, that's his rebirth, and it took Ragnarok for that to happen.
A burning down of your home. Yeah.
Yes, it's smoldering. Yes.
The smoldering.
So wait, so my down, I don't know where it fits in
Sure.
our list though, but I just wanted to make this get in there. Is it was one of my ups that Planet Hulk is on the screen, and we've got the big gladiator Hulk who is on Sakaar, just like in the comic book series.
Is Sakaar Planet Hulk?
Yeah, yes. In Planet Hulk, he is on Sakaar.
Okay.
However, it has nothing to do with the Grandmaster or this Contest of Champions or any of that.
So they combined
Grandmaster and Contest of Champions are a completely different thing. Thor is not in it at all. It's a completely different story.
Okay.
Planet Hulk is this. It's the Game of Thrones of Hulk stories.
Yes.
It is Hulk on this alien planet filled with monsters, rich backstories of all the different cultures,
And is Bruce Banner's Hulk the central character?
He's Hulk, yes.
Okay.
But Bruce is in it for like a minute, but it's all Hulk, and he's Hulk the whole time. And it's Hulk establishing himself, going from a gladiator and a slave, and it's his rise to power and uniting this planet, fulfilling prophecies.
Yeah.
It is an epic TV show.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
I mean, they definitely had in Ragnarok. They took a little bit of like the Ridley Scott's, Oscar award-winning gladiator
Those moments.
template. Here we got taken away from your family, and you get the training of the gladiators, and the gladiators fighting, and then gladiators rise up, right?
Yeah. So look, it's one of my ups that I loved it was on the screen, but it's my big down because like what a waste of such an epic and amazing story.
And but there's all this talk of in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where's the Hulk movie, right?
Well,
And that's a bigger debate in itself, because
Yes.
if you were going to do a Hulk movie now that's connected to Avengers, Planet Hulk would be it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be
absolutely.
it. The trouble is there's the Hulk standalone films, not under Marvel, but have
Universal,
have had a mixed history.
Yeah. Well, and again, because they keep trying to do the same thing with the crazy, uncontrolled Hulk.
Yeah.
This is the first time we're seeing that other aspect of Hulk, with Hulk's personality itself showing through and telling a Hulk story. In the comic arc Planet Hulk ultimately leads to Hulk coming back home to World War Hulk, which is a whole other dark story that, again, would make for epic movie or TV show.
I would love to explore that, yeah. And we got a lot. Like I said earlier, we got a lot of introduction, almost origin story of the Hulk character in Ragnarok.
Hulk himself,
Ultron
not necessarily Banner.
separate from Banner. And so that was interesting. We get an introduction to him, but it kicks off from Ultron, right? From Age of Ultron, where he escapes and he has feelings for Black Widow, right? And there's a little cameo, right? For Scarlet Joe. And that leads to, sort of why he's been hiding on this planet and creating this, huge following in this gladiatorial presence. So that was definitely an up for me in this film.
And again, completely different than the comics, where in the comics he's sent away from Earth.
Is that what happened?
Secretly, like the Doctor Strange, Mr. Fantastic, Black Bolt from the Inhumans, like all of these characters get together and Tony Stark say, "You're too dangerous. We're sending you away," which again pisses him off. And
Interesting.
it's a completely different dynamic as to why he's there and what's going on. So this was a kindler, gentler Hulk, and that's why he's just hanging out in a hotel room
With some great banter with
Absolutely.
Thor. They're definitely like in a hotel room. So for the second half of the second act, let's do some structure, shall we?
Absolutely.
Like a abbreviated structure tonight. We open with Thor in a cage. That's our opening image. right?
Yep.
If
Thor in a
you're-
cage, Thor in chains. Absolutely.
Thor and change. If we are not counting post-credit sequences, what is our thematic closing image?
Thor on a throne.
Thor on the throne. Great bookends.
Absolutely.
I loved it.
Yeah, very tight.
Set up some very funny expositional monologue to a skeleton, that made me start thinking about Jack Burton and Big Trouble in Little China. This film starts out and says, this is going to be funny first.
Yeah, absolutely.
And action second. The only question is, how would it go as far as Guardians of the Galaxy? And I think that was answered later. It certainly went as far, if not farther.
Yeah.
I think it went. I think the answer came when they started talking about when they repeatedly referred to the devil's anus. the temporal like
Wormhole, yeah.
wormhole is just, they said it several times in the film.
And lots of like running gags like that. I
Yeah.
mean, come on, the whole like sun's going down, big guy. Like,
What was that?
Oh
What
my God,
was
that was
that?
hilarious.
It was just the sun's going down,
It
sun's
was
coming up.
hilarious.
Yeah.
It was so. But again, when you're casting Goldblum as the Grandmaster, who's the brother of the Collector, who was in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, I
Benicio
didn't
del
know
Toro's
that.
character.
Okay, I'm glad
And I
you
mean, just
brought
think about
that up.
that tone.
Brother
Benicio-
of the Collector.
Yeah.
I wish we'd had more Collector stuff.
Maybe we
when
will.
when Asgard went to shit, I was wondering, what about all those relics? Remember, Hela walks by a bunch of the stuff in the Asgard sort of like collector area, or not collector area, but like their
Treasury.
Their treasury, right? What was the one that she liked? It was like a little square.
That was the Cosmic Cube, the Tesseract.
That's the Tesseract. Okay.
Which Loki looks at the end and probably pockets. Which
Yeah.
will lead us right into the next Avengers movie. It's that's the connective thread that they have been.
Yeah, I read
building for a
online
long
that the
time.
post-credit sequence with Thanos is at least the 8th time they've teased Thanos is coming in a Marvel film.
Well, finally, next year.
So it's happening.
That's it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So then setup is Heimdall happens to be a fugitive. Oh, we get the Led Zeppelin, the rock and roll music in the fight scene. Okay. That song, it's called the
Immigrant Song.
right? That was, to me, was like the greatest just sort of presence of the director in this film, because he didn't just do some action movie score for the opening and then the finale. He goes right to Led Zeppelin, right?
Good setup, yeah.
And so I was like, this is going to be a rock and roll movie. We find out that Loki's impersonating Odin. Matt Damon is playing Loki in the theater version. And then Odin dies, just passes away. I guess he get of old age.
Very Kung Fu Panda, Oogway. I don't know if you remember, kind of like particle effects off into the sunset. Yep.
Then that's essentially our catalyst. Odin dies, and he no longer can keep Hela from staying
that frees
away.
Hela, yes.
And Hela arrives, and Ragnarok is on her tail. So, I mean, it's kind of just that's the catalyst, and Hela's arrival, and she challenges Thor. She destroys the hammer.
Yep.
Right, which is pronounced
Mjolnir.
Mjolnir.
Mjolnir. But again, that setup is also very purposeful, and it keeps us moving in that first act. In terms of Surtur at the beginning tells Thor that Odin's not in Asgard. Leads Thor going to Asgard and discovering Loki is actually Odin, and then he takes Loki to go find Odin. They find Odin. Odin dies, and that releases Hela. One thing after another, and there's good causality which keeps things moving.
What I'm missing from the first act here, though, is the seeds of the character arcs, right? We don't the character arc for Valkyrie could have been established here. The character arc for Loki could have been established here, right? The character arc for Hulk could have been established, but they wanted to keep it a secret, right?
Yeah.
So you're not going to mention that. So Act 1 is where you're supposed to put the seeds of the character arcs,
Well,
and they just decide to do them in flashbacks later.
Loki's
or in
character arc-
Loki's case, he's the same Loki. There's no arc for Loki.
Well-
He's a bad guy. He's a good guy. He's a bad guy. He's a good guy.
But they
He's Captain Jack Sparrow.
They at least set it up in terms of having the statue of Loki as the false savior. And
True.
at the end, he shows up in almost the same pose as that statue as the actual savior.
he's the
'cause
savior.
he showed up with the ship instead of just taking it and getting away.
Okay, I didn't catch that. That's a great call. I
Yeah.
missed that. That's a good. That's
Little
a good
bookends.
callback.
Again, he's not
it's
the
a
main
good
character,
callback.
but-
He shows up with the hat,
Yeah.
and he does actually save the people of Asgard.
Yeah.
With a ship. Okay.
Yeah.
So they did set up that arc. Okay, so good call there. Breaking into is Thor's banished to the garbage gladiator world.
Sakaar, yeah, basically.
Called Sakaar, right? This is where it begins instantly to feel like the Marvel Galactic Universe. Okay, Sakaar is like Coruscant, right? In Star Wars, it is like it's a garbage planet. It feels like Blade Runner. It feels like a cyberpunk film.
Well, I mean, look at Force Awakens. I mean, Valkyrie's character, she's called Scrapper 142. She's basically doing the same role as Rey does in Force Awakens, right?
Okay,
Where
yeah.
She is just scavenging for all the trash that's out there.
And her ship is like Slave One.
Definitely.
She's
has
basically
that,
like a Boba Fett.
She is. She's
And
a mercenary out there.
Yeah, she's a mercenary.
Yeah, and again, we love those characters, and she has a lot of fun with
Yeah,
it.
they're archetypes, right? Sure.
Yeah.
We've got some basic. You got in the first half of Act 1, in the Fun and Games, you have two plots. You've got Thor.
First half of Act 2.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Act 2.
Yeah.
Fun and Games, first half of Act 2, you have two plots. You've got the Thor plot, right? And you've got the Hela plot, right?
Yes.
So the B plot is Hela taking over, very slowly taking over Asgard, okay? And we spend a little bit more time on the A plot, as you would. Thor's kidnapped by Valkyrie with this technology lock. He's a god, but you can put like a little like Apple Watch on his neck and control him.
Yeah, it's the
That's
iGod,
fun.
yeah.
Apple Watch can do a lot. They just came out with a new, upgraded the firmware. We meet the Grandmaster, who, I don't know, did you get enough of a character from the Grandmaster? You've got Jeff Goldblum, who's a comedic genius, and he's basically, I don't know, I felt like of any of the characters who didn't go off script, it was his character. He was just reading the character's lines,
What Titi said that there are hours and hours of additional footage of them just riffing with
I can't
Goldblum,
wait.
Of just him Goldbluming. Just
I would love, maybe Goldblum. I can see Goldblum, his riffs going completely out of character,
Oh, yeah.
and or swearing or something like that. I would love
Oh,
to
yeah.
see that.
Yeah, DVD's going to be interesting.
But it didn't make it into the movie.
Yes.
The way the other stuff happened. We get the Tournament of Champions, very much like Gladiator.
That's all still in the first half of Act 2,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. This is Fun and Games. Loki's present. This doesn't work for me. The fact that he was present on Sakaar, and he was not. I mean, it just didn't make sense because he was Thor's, partner as far as Act 1, and then Thor is a slave in Fun and Games, and Loki's just walking around. This is again where they're not serving the ensemble, right? Loki's walking around. He's trying to get in with Jeff Goldblum's character, and he's not doing anything. He's just kind of sitting there.
I keep going back to Game of Thrones, but I think my reading of it was that he was supposed to be coming across as very much of a Littlefinger character, where he was the conniver and he was the smooth talker and was
I
able
didn't see any of that. That would have made a lot of sense if he was negotiating with Jeff Goldblum, with Grandmaster to get Thor into a fight or to get Thor a weapon.
Just having some beat where he proved his value
Yeah.
or showed what he was. Yep. I
Instead
hear
of
you.
just sitting there and saying, "Oh, I don't want to jeopardize my place with the Grandmaster."
What was that place? Yeah.
There was a great homage with the character Korg. When they were picking weapons, he picks up a triple fork and he says, "This is kind of useless unless you were fighting three vampires that were huddled together."
Yeah.
A nod to like what we do in the shadows
Yeah,
comedy,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
exactly.
vampire joke. Valkyrie shows up in Asgard. We start to get to know her, which is so interesting that getting to know a new character so late in the story. I mean, it's already minute 35, 45.
It is expanding on the Hela story. Again, we've got seeds of it. We saw kind of the paintings of Hela's story and her conquest. So this is adding to it and bringing it to life in another dimension.
I wanted to ask you, in the arena, Thor puts on a helmet, It seemed to me like that was something from the mythology.
I think kind of having the big Thor wings is a part of what he usually has.
His traditional costume in the comics had the helmet,
has
right?
some kind of a helmet with the wings, and he's got something similar that he wears in one of the previous Thor movies, but he only like wears it once.
Okay.
Having the helmet, so it was a nice little nod to it.
It felt like
nice
there
little-
was a nod to the old stuff, maybe
Yeah.
the Kirby stuff.
Yep, absolutely.
I love that he found like a makeshift hammer in his fight with the Hulk.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was also great, and here's another great nod to the director's patience. This fight, the Thor and the Thor Hulk fight, just like the Thor fight with Surtur in the beginning.
Surtur, yeah.
Surtur was very hand to hand. It was not hyper edited. It was not a bunch of like laser guns and shooting. It was very well choreographed, and I mean it had to be super CG'd, but it had narrative to it. In action sequences that you can follow the story. That's a better action sequence than a hyper edited slamathon.
Yeah, well, especially in films like Transformers films, where it's just nothing but CGI and metal on the screens, and you can't tell what's going on. This was definitely refreshing, and again, the big bold colors that really brought it to life really helped that, and abstracted it in a way that we could easily follow.
The Thor starts to, for the first time, he gets his lightning in that fight. He starts to feel his lightning, and now that you said it, the fact that the lightning and losing the hammer and him being broken down so he could build back up, that being his arc, now I think back and I think, there's hints of it, because an arc is supposed to be an emotional experience for the audience. It's not just supposed to be, I get my powers and I'm all grown up. It's supposed to be about him and his dad. And there are some flashbacks to Odin when he's in the third act when he's fighting Hela.
Yeah, well, and again, I don't know if that's a flashback or if he's kind of communing with
Excuse
his
me,
essence
yeah,
or
not necessarily
whatnot.
a flashback, but he's communicating with his dad. Yeah.
One of the best lines is when Odin actually says, "Are you the god of hammers?"
Right.
It's
That
fantastic.
great line.
Yeah.
The trouble is, I didn't feel the father-son connection enough in Act 1. They didn't set that arc enough in Act 1 because all you see of Odin and Thor is Odin's already ready to go, and Thor's not very sad about it because too soon after Odin's death, which is, I'm not even sure if he's dead because he kind of flew off in particles, we don't see the loss or feel the loss that Thor feels that will be regained in his character arc when he sort of takes his father's place in more ways than one.
And it wouldn't have taken much.
No, just a little bit of emotional connection between, there was one line where he says, "My sons, I love you." He actually said that. I was like, oh, this director took a moment. He said, I need a father-son moment. And he, Odin says to his sons, "I love you," and
It's
that
a
was
family
really,
moment, yeah.
and it was nice because that connected us.
Do
I
you
wanted
think that
more.
do you think that it's a little too reliant on the fact that maybe if you watch all three movies together and got that flow, there would be enough resonance from the first couple where it was a lot more of that
Well,
familial?
yeah, he had a very complicated relationship with Odin.
Yeah.
First movie entirely, his father kicked him out, right?
Yeah, and Frigga dies. The mother dies. In that second
movie,
film, and it's
yeah.
very emotional and very heavy. And this kind of just swung completely in the other direction.
They could have cut some pieces of those previous family issues into this act for one, and to give us a stronger character arc for Thor when he becomes this king, in the image of Odin. One eye, short hair, no hammer, all that.
We just jumping around a little bit. I had a little trouble trying to figure out where our all is lost moment was.
Yes.
And again, I think that.
So let's jump
even just
first.
Mini all is lost
Midpoint,
moments,
I believe, for the A story was Hela decides to leave Asgard, right? And she can't because there's no sword. And then the midpoint for Thor is after the Hulk-Thor fight, Thor decides to escape Sakaar. Yeah. Okay, bad guys close in. Hela is like, the Hela plot goes away, right? Her rule is pretty boring. She's flirting with Scourge. Heimdall is protecting Asgard, but we lose this B plot. Then the A plot is Thor's trying to get off Ragnarok. We get to the low point. What did you have for the low point?
Well, again, I think that was my. I was like, what? Where was our low point here? Where was our moment where it looks like they're not gonna get into the wormhole? Like there was nothing like that. The closest thing I had, there was that destruction of the Quinjet. He thought he was gonna have it, but he wasn't. And that was a little too early. And then Loki betrayed Thor, so you had a quick minute of like, oh, wait a minute, is this all gonna fall apart?
A low point can be multi-plot. You can have low points for all of them. I just don't think any of them were very low. You're right. They lost the Quinjet, but that's the same time where where Hulk realizes that he had feelings for Scarlett Johansson. So there's a low Black Widow. So that's a low point there. Loki betrays them right then. Also, in the Hela plot, Scourge is going to execute the innocent blonde woman, and there's some guy who's like, "Oh, I'll tell you where the sword is."
So that then is
It's
a low point that's out there.
the whiff of
no,
death.
I hear you. Okay.
Wasn't a strong one. We didn't lose a main character. In fact, I think the entire third act, having Scourge in the movie entirely, was so that somebody could die. No one in the movie dies except Scourge.
And Hela, theoretically.
Hela, maybe. So breaking into the third act is the final fight.
And then the finale, which we don't usually go into the detail on, but
Yeah.
this was so structured, so beat by beat for the finale in terms of gathering the team up for the fight with all of your different players, storming the castle with the stand on the Asgardian bridge. Hightower surprise. Hela is like so much more powerful than they ever expected, and everything that they do couldn't do it. I would imagine that's as much a surprise as we got. And then that dig down deep moment of Thor communing with Odin really was that moment where he had
his force lightning.
Well, it was that. Yeah, he had his force lightning, but also to accept Ragnarok, to expect like that was the thing. Like, oh, I've got to completely rethink the way that I'm approaching this.
I wish that they would have paid lip service to that. That Thor could have at least just said that I need to let Asgard go. And then they do have that line that Asgard is the people, it's not the place. Yeah. But the idea that we've got to allow this place to be destroyed, it would have been nice to hear.
That would have been nice in the communing with Odin, as opposed to right afterwards.
See, and that that is an emotional moment because the father. It's like the father. If Odin had said it, it would have been like saying, "Let me go."
Yeah, but then we wouldn't have had a God of Hammers line.
That God of Hammers line. They went for the joke.
For the comedy.
All
right.
The final fight montage with the Led Zeppelin song was amazing. I would have ended the movie there. They had a bunch of action sequences after that. I would have ended it right there. It was a great action montage. I mean, for our final thoughts, how it should have ended, I would have gone out on that montage. I would have gone out, with they win the fight, right? The planet, they allow the planet to destroy itself. They get on the ship and they do a sort of a Star Wars throne room scene.
So
right?
you, like the Surtur stuff was like too much for you, like that.
So secondary. So
weaving that in a bit.
Once we got off Sakaar, I didn't care about Sakaar. The Surtur thing, that's fine. The idea that they had to destroy the place, but they had a bunch of sequences with Scourge after that you don't care about.
Yeah, totally took you out of it. Yeah, I agree about that.
And also, sadly, the Idris Elba character, Heimdall's role in it, they try to sew that up at the end, and I didn't care that much about it because they didn't serve that plot enough, that character enough.
I hear you.
Post-credit sequence, yet another Thanos is coming.
Yes.
And then the Grandmaster's still alive.
Yes.
It's a tie.
Exactly, and perhaps to pair with his brother yet another day. Benicio del Toro.
I didn't know they were brothers.
That'll be fun.
The Collector and
the
Grandmaster.
Exactly.
Awesome.
So fun stuff. Looking forward to Infinity War in 2018.
Okay, anything you're dying to say that you didn't get to say tonight?
Again,
from the comic book
I
world?
had a lot of fun with the movie. More fun, I think, than any other Marvel movie. That, again, the Marvel movies we always talk about, they are more fun than the movies from the DC universe, than the Justice Leagues and the Batmans and Suicide Squads and whatnot. But this just took that fun to a whole other level. I'm wondering if it's from the fun that they had with Deadpool, again, in a more R-rated way.
And Deadpool, is and I'll agree, this is the biggest, choice correct choice when you put on an A-list comedic talent in the director who can allow the comedy to balance out all the action. You've got, a blockbuster hit. That's what they want for a popcorn movie.
Absolutely.
You know, if you get a little bit of the emotion in there, I wanted a little bit more character arcs in there. It would have been perfection. But I think this is one of the, for me, this is one of the strongest Marvel films yet.
I'd say I definitely agree. Lots of fun. Looking forward to more.
Alec, thank you very much.
Thank you, David.
Guys, I want to thank Alec. I want to thank Adorama. I want to thank Seth Miranda. The script is produced by David Negrin, edited by Zoe Alexander. Reminder, if you like the Script podcast, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes and subscribe to the Script YouTube channel. Join our Facebook page by searching NYC Screenwriters Collective. Follow us on Twitter at ScriptFeed. You can support the Script podcast at patreon.com/thescript. Thank you.